Ms. Vickers, you may proceed.
Thank you. When I was coming back from lunch break, I rode the elevator with a juror. I didn't realize he was in the elevator. When I got in, he made a comment about me having a Diet Coke. I nodded my head and looked down and didn't say anything else. I told the state attorney about it. Doesn't seem to be an issue, but just wanted to let the court know.
Thank you. You said what now?
He said, I see you had a Diet Coke. I had a Diet Coke.
Oh, okay. Okay, both sides ready to proceed?
Yes. Yes, sir.
All right, let's return to jury.
All right, for re-entry.
You may be seated. State recognized presence of the jury.
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, members of the jury, did you follow all my previous instructions? Okay. The defense may call their next witness.
Counsel calls Dr. Jacqueline Olander.
Dr. Jacqueline.
truth do you bring forth, basically?
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. Thank you.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Olander.
Good afternoon.
Could you tell us your full name and spell it for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Jacqueline Olander. Jacqueline is spelled Jacquuelyn, and Olander is Olander.
And Dr. Olander, what is your profession?
I'm a licensed psychologist with a specialty in neuropsychology.
And where is your practice currently located?
My practice is located at 2737 West Fairbanks Avenue in Winter Park, Florida.
And how long have you been associated with that practice?
I've been associated with that practice since fall of 1996.
And could you tell us briefly what degrees you have?
I have an undergraduate degree, a Bachelor of Education from the University of Florida with a secondary minor in psychology. I completed 3 master's programs at the University of Washington in Seattle in school psychology, reading disabilities, and guidance counseling. And then at the University of Miami, I completed my doctorate in psychology. And then I went on and obtained further education with a specialty in neuropsychology that involved a 2-year residency at Orlando Regional Healthcare Center.
So it sounds like you started off as an educator and then progressed into counseling services and became a PhD in psychology. Is that correct?
Correct. Education, but with always the goal of psychology and wanting to understand how people behave.
And have you held any other positions besides your current practice in Winter Park, particularly in the field of psychology?
While working at Psychological Affiliates, I also, for about a decade, was the psychologist for the Child Protection Team. I was a professor at Valencia Community College, where I taught psychology and developmental psychology.
And you're licensed in the state of Florida?
Yes.
And how long have you been licensed in the state of Florida as a psychologist?
I was licensed beginning spring of 1997.
Okay. And are you active with any professional organizations currently?
Yes, I am. I'm a member of the American Psychological Association. I'm also a member of the National Academy of Neuropsychologists, the International Neuropsychological Society.
And what types of evaluations or examinations would you normally conduct in your course of work?
Approximately 60% of my practice is forensic evaluations, and that involves both criminal and a tiny amount personal injury, maybe 1 a year. I also complete evaluations on children who have been referred by the Child Protection Team or some agency that's been privately contracted with the Department of Children and Families. I do disability evaluations, and I also evaluate parents who have had their children removed for a variety of reasons.
Okay.
And I also do therapy and provide workshops and training in addition.
Okay. And are you on the court-approved list of forensic examiners for the state of Florida?
Yes, both juvenile and adults, dating back to, I think, the time the list was completed, so it's been many years.
Do you recall the last time that you would have taken the training course for that list?
I think I originally took it in the 90s, but I've taken ongoing training. In fact, I completed 2 workshops last week that's put on by the American Academy of Forensic Psychologists, who are considered one of the top governing boards in our field.
And who normally teaches the forensic examination course for Florida? Do you recall?
They have a number of people. One of them that I commonly like to attend is by Dr. Otto. He's was one of the founders in creating and developing these programs. But and again, he's part of that American Academy of Forensic Psychologists.
Okay. And in those evaluations that you've performed, in those forensic evaluations, Have you performed evaluations for sanity at the time of the offense?
Yes, I have.
Do you recall approximately how many times you may have done those?
Roughly 50, somewhere to 50 to 100 over my career.
And have you previously been qualified as an expert by a court of law?
Yes, on multiple occasions. I actually have a case list here.
Are they all in Florida, mostly in Florida, or are there other states?
Almost all of them are in Florida. This is from 2000 and on.
Okay. And that would include the Ninth Circuit where we're located today?
Yes.
At this time, I would ask the court to qualify Dr. Olander as an expert in the field of forensic psychology and neuropsychology.
What says the state? Members of the jury, Dr. Orlando will be accepted as an expert witness in the area of forensic psychology. You may continue.
And Dr. Olander, pursuant to a court order from Judge Perry, did you examine someone named Jason Rodriguez?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall if that court order came at the request of the state or the defense?
I'm going to object improper bolstering with the strike.
Sustain.
And were you paid for this examination and report?
Yes.
And do you see Jason Rodriguez in the courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
Would you point to him and identify something that he's wearing?
It is a gentleman, and he's wearing kind of a light blue, grayish shirt, maybe an off-white.
Would the record reflect that she's correctly identified Jason Rodriguez?
The record will so indicate.
And on how many occasions have you had an opportunity to examine Mr. Rodriguez?
Altogether, I've seen him on 4 occasions, but for this evaluation, I saw him 3 times.
And the 3 examinations, do you recall what dates those were?
Yes, and I'm glancing at my evaluation
So,
report.
so to refresh your recollection,
Yes.
you're referring to your report, is that correct?
Correct. I saw him on November 1st of 2012, November 9th of 2012, and January 4th of 2013.
And did you also see Mr. Rodriguez more recently than January of this year?
Yes, I did.
And when was that?
I saw him on, again, I'm looking at my notes. I saw him on Monday of this week.
Okay. And at each of those examinations, do you recall who was present?
Yes. On the first day I saw him, there was nobody else present because I stopped by to get his records up in Gainesville. I had been asked to do an evaluation up in the Union Correctional Facility, which is up in Stark, and it was like 5 minutes off the road. Since I was going there to facilitate, because of the timeline on the court order, I went there and stopped by to obtain background information briefly and getting records, because records can be a significant delay.
You stopped at where to get his records?
The North Florida Treatment Center where he was located. I actually ended up writing a letter to the court stating that I could not finish the evaluation in the timeline due to my lack of records. So I stopped by to facilitate that. Then I saw him again in Orlando on November 9th, 2012.
And who was present at that evaluation?
I believe it was, I'd have to refer to my notes. It would be either you or Miss Vickers. And I saw him again on January 4th, 2013.
And
For the evaluation, then on Monday you were present.
okay. And the evaluation in January was specifically for sanity, is that correct?
Correct.
And was that arranged as well with the state attorney?
I informed,
Sustain.
And approximately how much time did you, for the evaluation in January, we'll refer to specifically, do you recall approximately how much time you spent with Mr. Rodriguez that day?
approximately 2 hours.
And the more recent meeting with Mr. Rodriguez just this past Monday, how much time did you spend with him then?
Approximately an hour.
And if you could just briefly give us a list of what is some of the documentation that you reviewed in preparation for your report on his sanity.
Again, I'm referring to my report. I obtained records from the Orlando Police Department, records from the Greater Orlando Psychiatric Associates, various emails, a CNN video of Mr. Rodriguez's arrest, evaluations from Dr. Danziger, Dr. Burns, Dr. Tressler, Dr. Hall, and from the North Florida Evaluation and Treatment Center. I would like to add addition thing. Even though those earlier dates were not for sanity, I did obtain information, particularly the second one, that I used as part of the evaluation because it was an opportunity to gain data that was relevant to the question at hand.
So every time that you've met with Mr. Rodriguez has contributed to the opinion you'll issue today?
Yes. Various parts of the report, like background information, is always necessary in completing an evaluation, and particularly when one uses the scientific method in the completion of evaluations.
And the documents, the various documents and videos and things that you discussed, those were provided to you prior to your report that was issued, correct?
Yes. Again, going back to the relevancy of obtaining information, after I obtained, or should I say, received the court order, I requested from both the Public Defender's Office and the state for records, and I received an email back from the state saying that they had FedExed a package of materials that I had requested, and I received materials also from the PD's office.
And did you obtain any documentation after you had issued your report in this case?
Yes, I received some video, I guess would be the correct term, of Mr. Rodriguez's entering and leaving the building, the engineering building, medical records from the jail, and I'm trying to think. That's all I can recall at this point. Oh, excuse me. Some sanity evaluations from other doctors as well.
And did any of those documents change the opinion that you had initially stated in your report?
No, they have not.
Did your visit with Mr. Rodriguez this past Monday change your opinion at all?
No, it did not.
And if you would you tell us what you believe to be the test or the definition for sanity in the state of Florida based on your training?
Based on my training, the definition of insanity has two parts to it. One is a person has to be suffering from mental illness, disease, or effect, and because of the mental illness, disease, or effect, they did not know what they were doing, or if they did know what they were doing, they did not know that it was wrong.
And is it your opinion that on November 6th of 2009 that Jason Rodriguez had a mental infirmity, disease, or defect?
Yes, there's a significant history of that, and it's my opinion that he was suffering from a significant mental illness.
And what was that mental illness?
I diagnosed it with paranoid schizophrenia.
Okay. And in your opinion, is there a particular manner in which paranoid schizophrenic people should act?
No. In fact, it's often misunderstood by the general population of what a paranoid schizophrenic would present as. Paranoid schizophrenics have what is called in the literature both positive and negative symptoms. Positive symptoms are the hallucinations, the delusions, those that are characteristically known. But the negative symptoms, which are much more common, involve that flat affect, the lack of expression, that bland look, almost as if there's no emotional experience going on within the individual. It's a very flat presentation.
And did you observe those affects in Mr. Rodriguez in the times that you've met with him?
Yes, I did.
Is there anything else in the records that you've reviewed that also lead you to believe he presented that affect other than when he would see you?
No, not at all. It was very consistent.
That he had the same aspect as what you saw, or it was different?
It was, his presentation was basically consistent from the times I saw him beginning back in November through January, and was consistent with what was written in the records I reviewed. Now, there are more times, I think, in which his psychosis was more prominent, but his overall mannerism was consistent with the presence of a paranoid schizophrenic.
And the second part of the definition for insanity has two parts to it. The first part where it states that Jason Rodriguez did not know what he was doing. Would you agree with that, or is it your opinion that on November 6th of 2009, he knew what he was doing?
It is my opinion that he knew what he was doing, but answering it that way, it's important to understand that with a paranoid schizophrenic, you can have rational behavior living in or existing in an irrational world. In other words, if his delusions were true, would his behavior appear rational? And the case is, in my opinion, it would be. And that's why I found him to have known what he was doing, but he did not know that it was wrong.
And the delusions you're referring to, is that essentially what a delusion is? Something that the patient would perceive as reality, but to anyone else it is not reality.
Absolutely. He believed this was the world he existed in. This was his world that he lived in. This was his reality.
From your conversations with Mr. Rodriguez and from the records, what is your understanding of his delusion?
His delusion is based upon, for lack of a better term, this entity called Sharptooth. Sharptooth was not human. He was like a humanoid. He presented as a human, but he was not a human. He had special powers in which he could take control over other people and their minds. So he could get other people to become part of his conspiracy to destroy Mr. Rodriguez, because he had been zapped by radio waves or frequency from Sharptooth. So Sharptooth entered his mind, but he was fighting and resisting him over the years, and Sharptooth relentlessly went after him, destroyed him, in order to get him to conform and become under Sharptooth's control.
And did Mr. Rodriguez, on November 6th of 2009, did he understand what he was doing? Specifically, in this instance, that in pulling a gun and pulling the trigger of that gun, that the gun would fire and the consequences could be that someone would get hurt or killed. Did he understand that?
He understood that, let me say it again, he believed that Sharptooth was there, was present with his group of individuals or entities under his control that were out to destroy him. So he believed he was destroying Sharptooth and his group of humanoids who were under his control to protect himself. In other words, so did he know he was trying to destroy something? Yes, but in his mind it was not human beings.
And you said that it's your understanding, and if you could tell us specifically, why is it that you feel that Mr. Rodriguez believes that Sharptooth was at the location of the shooting? And for specific, do you recall what the name of the office was where this took place?
It was the engineering building, or I'd have to refer to my arts. Okay. I'm looking at the police records. I don't remember the three initials. I know it begins with R, so excuse me. It's Reynolds, Hills, and Smith building.
Okay. And so it's your understanding, how is it that you come to the understanding that Jason Rodriguez saw Sharptooth there that day?
When I saw him, he reported to me during one of the interview dates that he described his day with some details, and he described walking into the room and seeing Sharptooth, walking into a room and being confronted with Sharptooth with his group of followers. The next thing he recalled was death all around him.
And you said you had an opportunity to review the other sanity evaluations, correct?
Yes.
Were you the only one that this was reported to?
Yes. And with that, with any details whatsoever.
Could you give us your opinion as to why you think you're the only one who got this from him?
Objection to the speculation.
Overruled.
I think there are two aspects to that. First of all is the time. I saw him in January, which is the basis, and in November, which was further away from the trial. We know with paranoid schizophrenics that as stress level goes up, their symptoms can increase. It's a common occurrence. But even more so, I'm the only female doctor that evaluated him. And I think that's important because Mr. Rodriguez has a very close relationship with his mother. He feels very comfortable talking with her. And his relationship with his father, who has been reported to be paranoid schizophrenic, is much more distant and detached. So I think he is easier for him to control the symptoms of his illness when he's with a female over a male.
And is it normal for paranoid schizophrenia to affect memory in any particular way?
Absolutely. As a neuropsychologist, I feel very comfortable in providing my opinions about memory functioning, period, and how it's impacted by traumatic events.
And if we could, let's talk about traumatic events first. What's the effect of traumatic events on someone's memory, and then in particular in relation to someone who suffers from paranoid schizophrenia?
It's important to understand how we form memories, how the brain operates. And I've taught this many years as a professor, as well as my learning as a neuropsychologist and training. When we talk about memory, there are 3 stages of memory. The first stage is called sensory memory. This is memory that exists and we utilize when we're driving in a car. Information literally goes in one ear and out the other. We are exposed to it so we can keep our car on the road so it doesn't hit another car or go off the road. But we don't permanently store that information. It goes in and goes out. The next step of memory is called working memory or short-term memory. Short-term memory or working memory is like a keyboard that we use to enter data into a computer. The key focus of getting information out of sensory information into that second stage, which is short-term or working memory, is attention. We have to pay sufficient attention to it in order to go into short-term memory and then into long-term memory. What we know about stress and trauma is that when a person is in a stressful situation, the brain adapts to that by releasing particular hormones or steroids or chemicals, which the more stressful or the more traumatic the event is, the more those hormones are released. And those chemicals and those hormones directly interact with a part of the brain called the hippocampus. The hippocampus is the key brain component. It is literally the keyboard to long-term memory. In my training as a neuropsychologist, particularly about memory, there's a very famous person who died recently called H.M. H.M., when he was in his 20s, had a seizure disorder that was not controlled. So what they did back in the 50s is they removed, and we all have two hippocampi, left and right. So they removed the left hippocampi because they have found, if nothing else works to control the seizures, that could eliminate seizures altogether. Well, with HM, they ended up removing both hippocampi, and from that day forward, he could never store any new memories. Period. He lost the ability to effectively store information. So, going back to the current situation, we know that in times of stress, that we have that fight or flight response mechanism. The brain releases these chemicals that have a significant impact on the action of the hippocampi. The more stressful the situation is, the more it creates aberrant functioning with the hippocampi. So traumatic amnesia is a common occurrence. It happens with individuals in the military. It happens to all forms of traumatic event. There was one evaluation, I should say a lecture, in which in a POW simulated exercise that was published in the military magazines, 91% of the people involved described some symptoms of post-traumatic amnesia and other symptoms of feeling out of your body, feeling like you're in a dream state. So yes, the more severe, the more frightening, the more concerned, the more worried about a person being killed, the more those hormones are released and the greater impact it has on the hippocampi. Therefore, the hippocampi is not working, information does not get stored, period.
And on November 6, 2009, from what you've learned in this case, what, in your opinion, would Jason Rodriguez have been afraid of?
Oh, Sharptooth. Sharptooth had threatened him for years of destroying him, killing him and his family and others.
And how does Sharptooth relate to RSNH?
Mr. Rodriguez reported that when he walked through that door into that room, Sharptooth was there with his followers.
And essentially, so it's your opinion then that fight or flight would have kicked in, and unfortunately, fight is what kicked in.
Yes.
And does that lead to your ultimate conclusion as to sanity?
Yes, it did.
And in your opinion, in that definition of sanity, what part of that is it that Jason Rodriguez meets to be found legally insane at the time?
He knew what he was doing, but he was acting in self-defense, not only for himself, for his mother, his loved one, his family, and that he did not believe it was wrong because Sharptooth was not a human being, and neither was his followers.
All right, no further questions at the moment.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Dr. Orlando.
Good afternoon.
Before we talk about your contacts with Mr. Rodriguez, let me talk about the time that you spoke with Mrs. Rodriguez, his mother. Do you feel that Mrs. Rodriguez was able to be more open with you about her recollections because you spoke with her first or early on at a time remote to the trial?
I spoke with her over the telephone. I didn't speak to her face-to-face.
But you spoke with her over 10 months ago?
Okay, I'm going to refer to the specific dates in my book. I spoke with her on 2 occasions. It was back in notes out here. Yes, on December 4th, 2012, and then in January in 2012. 13, I should say.
So December of 2012 and January of 2013. So you were the first person to talk to her about the events of November 6th of 2009. Did you know that?
No.
Okay. You gave an opinion earlier that Mr. Rodriguez shared information with you because you talked to him at a time remote to the trial, and you were female.
Yes,
so he felt more comfortable with you.
That was, that's my thoughts, yes.
That's a guess, right?
Correct.
Okay. It could be that he decided to change his story over time.
That's a possibility, but...
Right. Or that he wasn't telling you the truth, and he was telling somebody else the truth because there's now a conflict between what he's told you and what he's told other people, correct?
I believe he told me the truth.
I get that. But there is a definite conflict between what he told you early on and what he has told examiners throughout 2013, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So he lied to them, but he told you the truth, is what you're proposing.
No, I'm not. Excuse me.
Question is calling for speculation according to the document.
The witness testified that she believed he was telling her the truth, so I'm following up on her original speculation.
Okay. No, I don't necessarily believe he was lying. We have something called psychological defense mechanism, and that is when there is a traumatic or stressful event out there, we can, as human beings, disconnect ourselves from that traumatic event by, it's called dissociation or blocking out. I saw that a lot with children who I evaluated with the child protection team who had been severely abused. In the records, they had reported the abuse, and then on other times they stopped reporting it. This was such a concern that they revised the whole procedure with the child protection team so that people were not, these children were not frequently questioned because of the traumatic impact of having to relive the trauma.
All right, so let's focus not on children, on Mr. Rodriguez. Mr. Rodriguez clearly told you a story months ago that is different than that he told to the most recent evaluators. Correct?
Yes.
Correct. Okay. For whatever reason, he told a different story. He told you Sharptooth was at the building.
Yes.
Okay. Now, back to his mother. One of the things that she told you was that on October 31st of 2009, she did not have her son pick her up at the airport because she was concerned about his driving patterns, correct?
That was my understanding, yes.
Okay. You recognize that that fact is different than what she told other evaluators.
Okay.
Did you know that?
I don't recall it.
All right, so let's go back to how you conduct this evaluation. You say you gather documents,
Yes.
correct? In this case, what you gathered initially was just, and requested was paper documentation, correct?
Yes.
Right. And during your evaluation process, you took it upon yourself to do some internet research that included Mr. Viewing a video on the internet of Mr. Rodriguez's arrest.
Yes.
Right. And you did that because it had been mentioned in some of the police reports, so you wanted to see that for yourself.
On multiple occasions, yes.
It was mentioned on multiple occasions, and so then you went and viewed it once, twice, however many times.
Yes.
All right. You also asked Mr. Rodriguez about what he meant during that statement, correct?
Yes.
You did?
Yes. But that was after I completed my report, when I saw him on Monday of this past week.
All right, so let's get this chronology down. You and I met at a deposition, did we not, on October 16th of this year?
Yes.
And I asked you at that time what you reviewed in connection with coming to your opinion in this case, correct?
Yes.
And you told me that you read various documents, right?
Correct.
You read other evaluators' reports, correct?
Correct.
And you looked at this video
Yes.
of him on the internet as he's being led into the police station, and the reporters are shouting out questions to him.
Yes.
All right. You told me at that time that you hadn't seen any video other than that. Am I correct?
When I completed my evaluation, yes.
Right. And all the way up till October 16th of 2013, you hadn't seen video of him at the building. Am I correct?
Correct.
You hadn't asked him questions about what his statement meant, correct?
Correct.
In fact, I asked you several questions about that. Do you remember?
Yes.
At your deposition? And you repeatedly told me you didn't need to ask him what he meant. Do you remember that?
I don't know if I specifically framed it that way. I recall that saying that I had sufficient data to render opinion. That was the gestalt or the overall opinion based upon the data that I had requested from both your office and the public defenders. And I relied upon what you office sent and what they sent to formulate the opinion.
All right. Well, you also took it upon yourself to view some items on the internet, right?
Just the video.
All right. Did you ask to see the video of him at the building?
Afterwards.
After you already came to an opinion.
Right. I'm always.
After the deposition as well, correct?
I am open to new information. I am open to changing my opinion if the new information supported me to change my opinion. So since it was brought up at the deposition, I felt it would be appropriate for me to obtain that new information and review it to see if it would change my opinion.
All right. So after the deposition on October 17th, you attempted to talk to the defendant to get this information, correct?
Not just to get the information, I wanted to know how he was doing, and to, again, I was asked him that question, but that wasn't just the sole reason. I wanted to find out how he was doing as well.
All right. So for the 3 weeks after the deposition, you didn't have any contact with the defendant. You waited until after 5 days of trial proceedings, until this past Monday, to get this information from the defendant, after he's already sat here through testimony and whatever argument was made about various points. Is that correct?
No, not completely correct. First of all, after the deposition, he was up in Gainesville. So I waited till he came down here.
And he's been here for 2 or 3 weeks. Am I right?
I don't know the exact day he came, but I was at workshops last week. I was out of town for about 5 days. This was the day I had available.
Okay. But you acknowledge that your contact with him based on your availability, came after he sat through days of testimony.
Yes.
You also acknowledge then that you came to conclusions and opinions in this case based on incomplete data.
I would not describe it as incomplete data. I would never render an opinion unless I felt I had sufficient data. Are there more data out there? Of course there's more data out there. But I rendered an opinion based upon sufficient data to obtain that position. Plus, I relied upon that records would have been sent based upon my letter, personal letter to the judge and to the state attorney and to the public defender requesting his legal and medical and psychological, psychiatric data.
Okay, so you got that. You got what you requested in the letter. And then when you got it, you realized that there were other things that you needed to do, just like when you did the internet research. Did you watch the video of Mr. Rodriguez entering into the building where RSNH was located on December 6th of 2009 prior to your rendering an opinion on his sanity in this case?
Objection. Ask the answer.
Overruled.
Okay.
Did you or did you not watch that video prior to your rendering an opinion?
I agree with that statement. I do not agree with the previous statement you made before it was objected to.
Is your answer no, you did not watch the video?
Yes, I agree with you on that point.
Okay, you didn't watch the video. So you have no idea how he entered the building, the manner in which he entered the building, where he went immediately upon entry, how long he was there, who saw him, where he went from there, and how long it took him to get upstairs. Prior to your rendering an opinion, you had no idea about how those things occurred or how long they took. Am I correct?
No, you are not correct at all.
Because you watched the video.
No, you are not correct because all that information was based upon the Orlando police records that were provided to me by the state a year ago.
All right. How did he get into the building?
He walked.
From where to where?
He walked into the building from after parking his car outside, of course, outside the building. He walked up and entered the building and took the elevators up into the office building, office of the engineering firm.
Really? You've since watched the video, I take it. Is that what you saw?
On the video, if you're referring to that, I saw him enter the building and look at the directory.
What happened before that?
I don't understand.
What happened before he entered the building and looked at the directory?
He parked his car and walked toward the building. I'm confused with your question.
All right. When he entered the building, did you see him slap the arm or the gate for the private parking area?
No, I don't recall that.
Did you see him get into the elevator garage? Did you see that part?
I don't recall that.
Did you take note of the fact that he was somewhere in the garage for 6.5 minutes before he came back down the garage elevators?
I know that there's an approximate time between those two events.
Okay. But prior to your rendering an opinion in this case, you did not know that particular fact. Am I correct?
Again, when I rendered this opinion, I reviewed the supplemental report that was 26 pages long, that was provided to me based upon my request from the state attorney's office to provide me with the relevant data.
Okay. So your answer is you did not know that he spent 6.5 minutes in the garage somewhere prior to his actually going into the main building.
Okay.
Right?
I'm going to refer, because I haven't memorized every piece of this, to the information presented to me in the report. That is what I utilized in providing my opinion, and there was time provided about
There's a summary of the time.
Right. So that's the information I had when I wrote this report and provided my opinion.
All right. So, did you go to the building
No.
to see how things were laid out there?
No, I did not.
All right. You had the crime scene technician reports available to you. Do you know what happened, or can you, since he couldn't tell you, did you piece together from other sources what happened on the floor during the shooting?
Again, I haven't memorized every detail, but based upon my recollection, he, according to the affidavit and the supplemental report, he entered the offices of the engineering firm, and he started firing. And he walked
and then
through
what?
it. And he walked through it.
In what manner?
I don't remember.
Right. So you had that information available to you, correct?
Yes.
And at this point, you can't tell us how that information either did or did not impact your decision-making in this case.
Again, what I testified earlier, a person can behave rationally and still be suffering from a severe delusion and existing in their mind in a world that's not based upon reality.
All right, Dr. Olander, I understand that, but my question to you was, you cannot tell us that you relied on specific facts in that report to assist you in coming to your conclusion in this case, correct?
No, I disagree with that. The information presented in the police records wasn't important.
Okay. So once he goes into the building or into the offices and starts firing, what did he do next? Since he can't tell you, you tell me what you were able to piece together from the records presented. What happened next?
Objection. Asked and answered.
She hasn't answered it.
Overrule as to that question.
Okay. My understanding is that he left the building.
Well, before he left the building, quite a few things happened. From the time he fired the first shots until he left the building, a number of things happened. Am I correct?
Yes.
Tell me what happened.
I know that he fired his weapon on more than one occasion.
How many?
I don't know the exact number he fired, but I know that, unfortunately, of course, one person is no longer with us, and a number of other people were injured. No other ones had severe life-threatening wounds. And then after that, he somehow left the building and got in his car and drove home, and that's where he was later arrested.
All right. Those are the basic facts.
Mm-hmm.
The details of what happened inside you tried to get from him.
Yes.
And he says, I don't remember.
Right.
Right. So necessarily, you have to rely on other sources for what happened inside. Police reports. Correct?
Yes.
All right. Did you read witness statements?
I read what was provided to me by the state attorney's office, and that was the charging affidavit and the 26-page supplemental report.
And you got witness statements, correct?
In there, yes.
All right. So you read them.
Yes.
Did you?
I read the whole report.
Did you read the witness statements?
I read what was in the report, and there were statements by the witnesses in the report.
All right. So what you're saying is you read the summary in the report of the inches of witness statements that were provided. You didn't actually read the witness statements themselves.
No, not the individual, no.
All right. So since you didn't do that, you don't know whether or not Mr. Rodriguez was going into specific offices or what offices or cubicles he was shooting into, or whether or not he took a particular path near the manager's offices, and whether or not he came back and was trying to determine whether or not a particular manager was there.
Prosecutor is attempting to add facts on evidence, free current testimony.
Objection sustained on compound question. Rephrase your question.
Okay. Since you didn't read the individual statements, you don't know what path Mr. Rodriguez took through the office, correct?
I do not know the information that's beyond what was in this report.
Since you didn't read the individual witness statements, you don't know which cubicles he was firing into, correct?
Correct.
Since you didn't read the individual witness statements, you don't know whether or not he took a path past the offices of the managers, correct?
No.
And since you didn't read the individual witness statements, you don't know if he doubled back before he left that floor.
No.
Did Mr. Rodriguez's mother explain to you that Mr. Rodriguez was treated unfairly by his employer at RSNH?
She expressed concern about his well-being, but I don't recall her attacking his employers.
Right. But he told you that he had been treated unfairly by his employer, RSNH,
Yes,
correct?
yes.
That he had been wronged by them, correct?
Okay. What he explained or stated to me was that there were people at his former employment that had become followers of Sharptooth, and they were acting out Sharptooth's rules. And so he was suspicious, and it wasn't just people at his former employers, but other incidents in his day-to-day functioning. Individuals who had lived at his apartment complex.
All right.
So it just wasn't his employees alone, employers, I should say, alone.
Right. So is your answer to my question that he did express to you that he was wronged in some fashion by the people at RSNH?
These are not people from his business. They were people under the direction and control of Sharptooth.
Including people at RSNH.
Them, but also other people outside of RSNH.
But he didn't go to those other places and shoot them up, did he?
No.
He only went to RSNH.
Yes.
What event occurred on November 6th of 2009 that got him over to RSNH?
He went there because he had not received his employment check, and he went there to find out what was going on, why he didn't get the employment check.
All right, you're talking about the triggering event of him going to the post office and realizing that there's no unemployment check there for him, correct?
Correct.
That triggered his journey to RSNH, or to that building where they were located.
It caused him to go to the building, but it's not my opinion that triggered the shooting.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
The event of getting this unemployment check is what drew him or led him to go to the building.
Correct.
Okay. Now, he tells you that when he gets to the building, Sharptooth is there.
When he walked into the room, Sharptooth was there, which is obviously inside the building.
All right. Do you recall us talking about whether or not he told you where in the building he saw Sharptooth?
He saw Sharptooth when he entered the offices of the engineering firm.
Okay. What he didn't tell you was that he went to RSNH to address Rafael Velasquez about the brain hacking in Sharptooth, correct?
He had reported that to me. Let me rephrase that. He did report concerned that Mr. Velasquez was part of Sharptooth's followers.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness? All right. I'm going to show you page 30 of your deposition.
Okay.
Why don't you take a look at that and tell me if it refreshes your recollection about the subject that we were speaking. Line 8 and 9.
Line 8 and 9, yes.
And if you need to read above and below it, feel free.
Okay.
Does that help refresh your recollection?
That he was talking to 3 people. Yes.
Does it also help refresh your recollection that at the time of the deposition that you gave, October 16th of 2013, when I was asking if he told you exactly where in the building he saw Sharptooth, you were unable to provide that information?
He was, okay, let me look at, I said he was talking to Sharptooth in the building.
Sharptooth, my question was, Sharptooth was talking to 3 people.
Okay.
Remember that?
Okay.
And your answer was, uh-huh.
Yes.
I said, where? You said, at the building. And my question was, it's a large building. Did he give you any details about exactly where? And what was your response?
No. He said no. And again, the problem with that response was when you're talking about the building, I was talking about the office. The office building. So he said that he saw Sharptooth when he entered the building, and I was referring to the office building of the engineering. I wasn't talking about the huge big building itself. It was the office building.
Was my question at deposition unclear?
Now I see that it was not specified to the specific business itself, because I did not know that
It was a multi-story building?
that it was a huge multi-story building in which the whole thing was the engineering office versus those specific rooms.
The whole thing isn't the engineering office, is it?
No, it's not.
All right. So when I asked you where Sharptooth was talking to 3 people, and you said at the building, and I told you it was a large building, did he give you any more detail than that? You said no. There was something confusing about that exchange.
Correct. Well, it's true. What I said was at the building. It was at the building.
But I asked you if you could give us any detail about exactly where in the building he saw Sharptooth, and you said 3 weeks ago, no.
Again, at the building is where he saw Sharptooth. It's where he walked in and saw him.
I may approach the witness again. Why don't you give a complete answer from 10 to 17,
Okay.
lines 10 to 17.
Okay. No, he felt like that there was death there. He believed he saw Sharptooth there talking to 3 people at one time. Could not give me any specific details, if they were standing, if he was moving his mouth. He couldn't give me any of those types of details. He felt like it was death. The experience was like he was in slow motion. It was a very weird experience for him.
So 3 weeks ago, you told me he couldn't give you any specific detail about where in the building he saw Sharptooth, but now you are reporting that he said he saw Sharptooth as soon as he entered into the offices of RS&H. Is that accurate?
What I'm saying is that when he entered the office building of RS&H, it's when he saw Sharptooth.
So that's what you're telling us now.
Yes.
Was Sharptooth trying to kill him?
He believes it was true.
How?
Sharptooth had been entering his mind for years, controlling, destroying him,
That day, how did he believe Sharptooth was trying to kill him?
because there was death everywhere.
How did he specifically believe? Was Sharptooth trying to stab him? Was Sharptooth trying to shoot him? Was he trying to beat him to death? How did he perceive, since that's what we're talking about, his perceptions, how did he perceive the immediate threat?
That's all he said. He could not provide me any more details than that.
Did you ask him if he tried to access the offices of RSNH by a back stairwell before
No.
he went upstairs? Did you even know that that was a possibility at that building?
Not at the time, no.
Back at the time of the deposition and at the time of your rendering an opinion in this case, you did not ask him any questions about what his statement meant when they left me to rot.
No.
As a matter of fact, you told me several times you didn't need to ask him about that. Am I correct?
As I recall from my deposition, I reported that it wasn't necessary for me to have that answer in order to render an opinion.
You also told me it wasn't necessary for you to render an opinion to listen to or watch the police interview with him, correct?
Can I add a comment about that left me to rot?
We're past that.
Okay.
I'm asking you a different question.
Okay, can you repeat it again?
You also told me at the time of the deposition that it wasn't necessary for you to listen to or watch the police interview with him in order to render your opinion.
No, because it was summarized in the supplemental report, and again, that's what was provided to me by the state.
Okay. You recognize that that was audio and videotaped, correct?
They commonly are, so yes, that would be my opinion.
Did you ask to see that?
Not before I,
Rendered your opinion.
yes.
Okay. So during your direct testimony, you had indicated that you felt that Mr. Rodriguez certainly understood what he was doing.
Yes.
Are you also of the opinion that when he pulled a gun on his mother that morning, if he would have shot her, he would have known that was wrong?
My understanding of the event was that she was able to stop that because he did not appear to know who she was, and she was able to call out to him, and at that point he recognized his mother, so he stopped and did not fire.
All right. Despite the fact that he also said that in some form Sharptooth was at him all day. Is that correct?
Not every moment, but he certainly was frequently
At him was his
At
words,
him.
right? At him.
Yes, through
Okay.
various means.
You know about the incident where he went to the university but left the gun in the car, correct?
The educational school, yes.
So up to that point, if he were to take that gun and take it onto school property, he would have known that that was illegal or wrong, correct?
Yes, yes,
Same with taking it into the post office. Am I correct?
yes.
And then if he, after the event, when he is confronted by the police, if he would have shot at them, he would have known that was wrong.
Yes, but he did not see Sharptooth there.
All right. So the length of time that he saw Sharptooth was from when he started shooting until he stopped shooting. Is that what you're telling us?
No, I don't know when it's ended. I do know that this is a man whose perceptual reality was based upon the belief system that Sharptooth was trying to destroy him. He was able to get many people to become his followers and act in his behalf, Sharptooth's behalf.
All right. My question, though, was the length of time, because you're saying that he was insane at the
Yes.
time of the shooting.
Well, that's up to the jury, but it's
That's
my
your
opinion.
I understand. You are giving the opinion that he was insane from the time he started shooting until he came out of this reality, which was when he got home.
I don't think that's a completely accurate statement of my opinion. My opinion is that he lives in this delusional world, a delusional world in which Sharptooth existed.
Okay, but despite that delusional world, he is able to know the difference between right and wrong. Correct? You've said that there are varying points in time, both that morning and that afternoon, that he would understand certain illegal activity was wrong. So despite the existence of this reality, this is my question, despite the existence of this reality, he can understand the difference between right and wrong.
He can understand the difference between right and wrong when his world is consistent with the real world. Yes, I answer that. And that's my opinion, is when his reality is consistent with the real world, he clearly knows, what is right and wrong.
All right. When his reality on this specific day, in your opinion, changed when he walked through the doors of RS&H and started shooting, because he told you he saw Sharptooth there.
He believed, yes, he reported seeing Sharptooth with his followers there.
Right. So that's when his perception of reality was different than the real world.
Correct.
So that lasted as long as the shooting lasted. And then he went back to the same reality that you and I have once he's home.
That lasted as long as Sharptooth and his followers were present. Having said that, he's also reported being followed by Sharptooth followers, but not feeling in immediate danger previously. But he reported other times feeling and believing that Sharptooth was present and his followers were present and persecuting him.
Okay. And he didn't shoot him then, right?
He was not in immediate danger at that point.
All right.
Or he did not perceive to be.
I still don't think you answered my question.
Okay.
The altered reality where Sharptooth is present lasted as long as the shooting lasted.
I can't answer that because
he can't tell you.
his reality, his distorted reality, continued to exist after he left the building.
Until he got home.
No, it continued to exist and still to this day exists to some degree.
All right. But as we sit here, you are of the opinion that he knows the difference between right and wrong right now.
Based upon his reality, yes.
All right. No other questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Would the medications that, let me ask you first, you've had a chance to review throughout the last several years what medications Mr. Rodriguez has been taking for the schizophrenia. Is that correct?
You mean since his incarceration?
Yes.
Yes, he's been on antipsychotic medications.
Would those medications affect someone's memory?
Yes, they can. Absolutely. They can have a cognitive impact. In fact, antipsychotic medications can be toxic to the brain.
And does paranoid schizophrenia itself as a disease, could that also affect someone's memory? Does it actually physically or physiologically affect the brain?
Absolutely. It's been clearly identified that people who suffer from schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia, have significant decreased cognitive abilities. And what's particularly relevant is the hippocampi has been found to be significantly affected in people with paranoid schizophrenia. In fact, now they're even finding it people who suffer from major depressive disorder with psychotic features. Now they've demonstrated that that also impacts the hippocampi.
And did you note depression with psychotic features in his past medical history?
Yes.
Does the fact that his mother does not have a specific memory of who picked her up at the airport affect your opinion of Mr. Rodriguez's sanity on 2009, 2 years later?
No,
Or a week later, excuse me.
No, it was a very traumatic experience for her as well. And she reported that she had just come back from taking care of her parents for a month who are suffering from chronic illness.
Does the fact that he, according to at least the surveillance video from the Gateway Center, does the fact that he may have been wandering around the parking garage for 6.5 minutes prior to actually entering the building, does that affect your opinion of his sanity?
No. Again, you can have insanity where, as I've repeated earlier, you can have rational behavior existing in an irrational world.
And you were asked about whether you had read the individual witness statements, and I believe your reply was that you read the witness statements that were included in a 26-page summary. And those were documents that were provided to you, you said, by the state attorney's office.
Yes.
And did you trust that what was reported in that summary accurately reflected what the witness statement said?
Yes.
Does it make a difference to your opinion whether Mr. Rodriguez had seen Sharptooth, say, in the lobby of the entire building versus in the actual lobby of the offices themselves?
No. What I think is relevant is when he first saw people in front of him, he perceived them to be Sharptooth and his followers who have persecuted him over the years because he kept fighting Sharptooth's dominance and control and was being punished by Sharptooth and his followers. And he frequently referred in my interviews with him as they. So they referred to Sharptooth and his followers.
And you were also asked on cross as to the interview that Orlando police did with Mr. Rodriguez after his arrest. And I believe you indicated that you did not see the video or the audio of that interview, but you read the report as it was provided to you.
Yes.
And was that, by report, is that a transcript? Is that what it appeared, or was it a summary by the investigating officer? Do you recall?
It probably is more like it's not a direct transcript. It was a detailed summary of the relevant aspects of the investigation.
Do you recall, did it indicate how long they had interviewed Mr. Rodriguez for and whether he told them anything about the event?
There were references to time, but I don't remember specifically if that. But they did reference time, again, like when he entered the building there was some time information, but I don't recall if it was specifically listed in how much time passed during the interview with Mr. Rodriguez.
And in that summary, did it state, did Mr. Rodriguez say anything to the officers that influenced your opinion as to his sanity?
Again, they kept quoting that statement as that they left me to rot. But in my opinion, Mr. Rodriguez frequently referred to Sharptooth and his followers as they. So they was Sharptooth.
And are you referring to the scene with the media walking into the building, or are you referring to a report about the interview or interrogation in the building?
Both. There were indications when he communicated with the police of a similar statement, as well as with the video media.
And did your meeting with Mr. Rodriguez this past Monday change any of your opinions or give you any concerns about the accuracy of what you initially reported in January?
No.
No further questions.
Any recross?
Nothing, Your Honor.
May the doctor be excused?
No, Your Honor, she could just wait briefly.
Okay, doctor, you may step outside, please.
Thank you.
May the attorneys approach the sidebar, please. Okay, members of the jury, that's going to conclude the presentation of the evidence for today. Based upon what I know at this time, we will more than likely conclude all of the evidence sometime tomorrow. And then I will let you in on our schedule after that. More than likely, if we conclude the evidence early afternoon, we will probably come back first thing Friday morning for closing arguments and an instruction on the law. But I have a better idea after tomorrow. But we're still scheduled to complete this sometime on Friday. But as I said, I have a better idea tomorrow. We're going to recess. I'm going to ask that you return back here tomorrow morning at 9:45. Please remember, do not discuss this case among yourselves nor with anyone else. If you should happen to see the attorneys, please do not communicate with them in any fashion whatsoever. Again, please do not take it as a personal affront. If they don't look at you, look the other way, because they are not allowed to communicate with you in any fashion. Do not watch, read, or listen to any news accounts. And do not use any type of electronic devices to do any research on this particular case. Have a good evening. You're excused, and stay warm tonight. You may be seated. Okay, Ms. Vickers.
Sir, at the beginning of this case, the court had appointed Dr. Olander as, I don't know what the title is, some kind of standby evaluator in case it should be needed. I believe
You're going to have to tell me a little bit more than you believe is needed. You can either do it at the sidebar with the state present, or you can do it in open court, but you can approach. Victor, have the doctor sit in the courtroom, bring her in. Dr. Victor, have Dr. Orlando come back in and sit. I know how to reach you. Thank you. Okay, based upon the bench conference, the defense has informed the court that they have certain concerns that they have about Mr. Rodriguez's competency. Those are the same concerns, basically, that you have expressed the entire time. You have represented to the court as officers of the court. There are certain things that have occurred, particularly today, that raises in your mind a renewed interest in your client's competency. Is that correct, Ms. Vickers?
Yes.
Based upon that request and based upon the court's previous order having standby expert, I will contact the standby expert to examine Mr. Rodriguez and report back to the court and to both counsel. I will also order, as a part of this evaluation, that she contact Orange County Corrections to review any patient records or observations that they have made of the defendant's conduct contained in their records, so she can make a thorough examination and report back to the court forthwith as soon as she completes that evaluation, and then we'll go from there. Anything else, folks?
I would just ask that she contact us to let us know so we can present.
Does the state also want to be present? She's going to tell you what time she's going. It's not going to be one of these things where she's going to adjust her schedule to make it fit for you. She will tell you what time she will be there. And if either side wants to be present, they can be present. If you will leave numbers with the court deputy, so I will be able to give those numbers where you can be reached. Okay, we will be in recess till tomorrow morning.
And Roger, did we hear her, did we say 9:45 tomorrow?
No, 9:30. If I said 9:45, then I said it in error. Well, it's 9:45 if I told the jury. I don't know why I said that. Maybe it was a premonition. Rodriguez's competency